Hi there, I'm Aly Elliott.
Hi there, I'm Aly Elliott and welcome to my channel. Today we are continuing the Hiraeth series and we're going to go deeply into each image and talk about the stories of these babies, and also I'll point out some of the things that you might miss otherwise that are very much a part of their story. So the order that I'm going to go in for the videos is the order from the Hiraeth book. There are still 5 copies left if you want one. They are available at alyelliott.com or at rootsandwingsphotography.com. I'm going to page 2 today, and we are going to discuss the beautiful Aubrey. I met her mama in the year 2007. I joined, after the death of our daughter, I joined the Miss Foundation support forums online. And it took me a little bit. It took me a lot of reading to get the courage up to tell my story. And in doing so, I met a group of women that were my support system. I have an amazing family, an incredible husband and mother and father and sisters, and everybody was very supportive. But to speak to someone who literally was in your shoes as much as anybody can be, it was therapeutic for me and for a lot of women, and we went through the rough waters together and supported each other, and I met a lot of incredible women there, and Aubrey's mama, Kendra, was one of them. And in that experience, there are always a few that really their story sticks with you, their face sticks with you. You feel like you're meeting friends of your children. And bereaved parents, this is how we do that. We meet in grief. And her story stood out to me. I don't see dance at all without thinking of them. They're synonymous with dance. I spoke in our first video regarding this series about the last question on my questionnaire, what you want, what each family wants the world to know about their story, about their child, about their life, about their death, just what they wanted to say. And there was a huge range of answers there. So I'm going to open up each video by reading to you what was said by the mother and father and what they want you to know about their child's life. Aubrey Lynn is our first child. She came into this world pretty easily and maintained that ease throughout the first 5 months and 9 days that she was ours. She slept through the night early. She smiled early, a smile so big it almost didn't fit on her little face, and it was so contagious. So infectious. She literally was always happy. It was rare that she cried, and when she did, it was always an easy fix to make her content with her world again. We loved that little monkey, as her daddy called her, more than we ever knew how to explain, and then just as quickly, just as easily, she slipped out of our world. We later found out that Aubrey died from SIDS. And the grief of already losing her was accompanied by knowing that we'll never have answers to why we couldn't keep her longer. We miss her deeply, we love her still, and we honor and remember her in the little everyday moments of life. The smile on her sister that at times looks just like hers. The sight of a butterfly soaring by in those moments we're missing her the most. The bright pink sunsets that Hallie just knows would have been her favorite. She's one of those stories, like I said, dance is one of those things that will forever make me think of Aubrey. I've got one of my living daughters in dance, and I think about them. That's part of her legacy, is that's part of who she was and her mama, and because of my time knowing them, that's what I associate with dance and with them. So I knew when this project started that I was gonna have to incorporate that somehow. That had to work. She was one of the very first families to meet with me for this project and waited incredibly patiently from my end 4 years. We met in 2016 and took these photographs, and the time that elapsed in there would have been tremendously changing for Aubrey. She would have been 10. In the image that you see, she would have been 10 years old. Now, by the time of the opening, she would have been 14. So very formative years for a little girl. Part of what I wanted to know from the families was physical attributes that you picture them. Like I mentioned about my own daughter, I have a very distinct image in my mind of her and what she would look like. And I wanted to make sure for families that have that image in their head, I wanted to do my very best to replicate that in their image. In Kendra's questionnaire for her beautiful Aubrey, the first 2 sentences really stood out to me because it put into words, I think, what a lot of people were feeling. And so the question was, key physical attributes you envision your child to have now, if he or she were still living. And she responded with, this one is tough. I rarely let myself go here. And I think that's something that for a lot of bereaved parents resonates deeply because it's a natural part of our everyday. But to be able to really sit down and think about it is, it's a very emotional thing. Kendra introduced to me this poem, and I do not have the author of it, but I have called on it. I've printed it out in a few different places and called on it from time to time, and it makes me think of her little girl, and it makes me think of my little girl. And a lot of us include butterflies as a little spirit visitor from our babies. And this poem puts that into words. A butterfly lights beside us like a sunbeam, and for a brief moment its glory and beauty belong to our world, but then it flies on again, and though we wish it could have stayed, we feel lucky to have seen it at all. And that encompasses our feelings very much, I think. That's something that I have looked back to very often. So butterflies is something that I have attributed to them too. We met in, we both drove for this meeting. We both had things going on, and we met in this convention center, and we got permission to photograph in it. And it was kind of a cool architectural visual aspect, but it didn't really tell her story. So you can see some of the raw images here that I used to create Aubrey's photograph. And we took her photograph in, so we created Aubrey with the use of her living sister, Aly. And she was only 6 at the time that we did these images, and she was incredible, and she's an incredible little dancer. And she did 2 different outfits so that we could adjust one to represent her sister. And I was able to manipulate her bone structure and things about her appearance using images of Aubrey and editing skills to create what I believe Aubrey would look like at the time that we did this image, when she would have been 10 years old in 2016. I added, you can see the little white butterfly in there with her, and I felt like the background that we shot with wasn't really part of the story, and it was a little bit distracting. So I changed that, and I took out some of the furniture and decorative stuff just so that it wasn't a distraction. The reflection on the floor that you can see, 2 reflections, was unplanned, but it was just a gorgeous gloss to the floor, so I wanted to work with that. And I pulled the light in from a different kind of direction. You can see in the raw images that we use strobe lighting to assist with controlling the directional light. To just kind of go on a little photography tangent there, my son helped me with that, and my children became very well versed in assisting me with lighting throughout this process for this project. But I wanted to take out all the distractions and let the two sisters really shine, especially in the context of dancing, because this is their stage. And I found the little butterfly, the little white butterfly, just couldn't help but catch her eye because of how light and bright it was. And I felt like that made sense. So that was a physical representation in the image of Aubrey. And for me, that's representing that these brothers and sisters go through life and still get that tangible connection with their siblings, but it's not in the same way that a living sibling is able to. But it's still there and it's visible. You just have to know to look for it. She was strategically placed. I didn't like the visual of there being a barrier between the sisters, the barrier of the kind of grid pattern that you see on the wall with the windows. So I specifically placed her leap to be busting through the barrier, again, as a symbolic representation that their legacy lives on in their siblings, and neither is overshadowed by the other, and she's looking up to her big sister, as most little sisters do. And the lighting just kind of complements that. I remember I spoke to Aly when she got her picture taken about what she thought her sister might look like. And it was the most pure, precious conversation that I have had. But she said, I think her face would be a little more round than mine. And I took that into consideration when creating her sister's face. And in my daughter's dance school, the older girls wear the black leotards. So that is why I chose the colors that I did, that she's a little more mature and she's being looked up to by her baby sister. And pink, of course, though Aly said pink sunsets, a little pink everywhere, I think, is very representative of the sisterhood. And that's why she had her little pink leotard. Compositionally, I wanted this one to be portrait orientation, so that with her arms raising up, she is lifting her sister up, and it gives more height to the dance. And it felt very symbolic to me. Even the light coming in from the outside felt symbolic, that it was the light of the outside, the light of her sister shining down on her. So those are kind of the thought that went into this image and what was going through my mind. And what I was hoping to achieve to tell her story. And it's a precious story, and I'm so very grateful that they have not only shared it with me, but allowed me to share it with you. And I hope that this is an image that the family can find comfort in over the years, and I offer it as a physical, tangible representation of their beautiful daughters. And as long as I live, these babies, all of them in this project, and I call them babies, they're not all babies, some of them were older, but like I tell my kids, when you're 80 years old and you're a little man and woman, you'll still be my baby. So no matter how old they were, they are our babies. So I use that term broadly. But I appreciate you being here and being a part of this journey with me. And I will continue this with the next video. The next one is Baby Delaney, and that will come in the next couple of days. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for hearing Aubrey's story and taking her with you. Bye.
That's why you my mommy. Please.